Dr. Raleigh for a long, long time. He used to be in Claremore Sequoia. I got to know him really well whenever he was at Sperry in very, very difficult circumstances that he had at Sperry. In fact, he was named superintendent of Sperry Schools because through all the drama and difficulty that they had, their superintendent, who I actually started my teaching career with at Raleigh back in the early 70s, had decided to step down. And so they named Dr. Raleigh to be the superintendent, and there was just too much turmoil, and so they really lost out. And it's a good example of school boards who don't behave; they're going to lose out. And I don't even know who the superintendent there now is. I know they went through
Dr. Beacons.
Okay, I know they went through a couple.
Yeah.
3 or 4 until they kind of finally started to line things out. I don't know if you ever picked up on this, but whenever I was named superintendent in Tulsa, there was a lot of discussion about that because their job wasn't opened up. Didn't interview, they just named me to it. And I knew that would create controversy, and it did. But in particular, there was clearly a pattern of a person or two that were very critical of me. And finally, I don't really pay much attention to that at all, but finally came to my attention that it was one of the board members from Sperry who was being very critical that Tulsa Public Schools would name somebody like me because I tried to tell them how to run their school. Well, I tried, but I failed. So Dr. Raleigh then went to Pryor and took a dear friend of mine, Larry Burdick's place. It's hard to fill shoes like that, but wow. He has an interesting job, interesting guy, one of the very few that are not on the formula, and that's because he has such a high admiration with Mid-America. But we're very fortunate that on such short notice, and obviously as his wife with him, they have plans. I know they have an anniversary coming up pretty soon, and so he's here, and he's going to spend, whatever time, no more than an hour. It's fine if it's less. If you want to open up for questions, I'm sure they'll have questions, though.
I appreciate the opportunity more than anything else. When you call, I've always benefited from having people pour into me and listening to their perspective and where that goes. When you have me, we're attached to the hip. That's the way that works. And that's part of the deal. If you're going into the superintendency, your family's going into the superintendency. You can speak to that as well. She's been to more elementary musicals and basketball games and you name the activity. That's part of it. You got to be visible. You got to be part of that community, and that means your wife's more than likely going to go as well. So that becomes a big part of it. I appreciate your kind words. He is part of the reason I'm in Pryor right now. He's helped me, and as we said, a lot of people pour into you. You don't get anywhere you're at unless a lot of people help you. And I think that's a responsibility you have to also give back, pour into other folks, and mentor and help as much as possible. I have lived this is my 10th year at Pryor, just starting. Just getting used to the doctor deal. I just finished that, so I commit.
I like the way it sounds.
I do too, but just because it's over, I don't care if you call me that. I just more than anything just be glad that it's behind me. But it's a journey. A little background on me: I graduated from Sequoia Claremore area, went to Northwestern, got my undergrad degree in natural sciences, taught math, basically mostly. Even though I had a science degree, that was the job that was available when I got out. Sequoia Claremore. Back in that area, went home. Went to South Lake Carroll for a year, was there for 1 year, too far south of the Red River, come back north. Was at Dewey as head basketball coach, coached about everything. I taught math, soft science, became the technology director because I knocked on the door one too many times and wanted internet in my classroom. And Paul Smith said, fine, make it so, and you're now the director, which gave me 1 hour a day to take care of all that, plus coach basketball, football, and everything else. There I went to Sperry. There I got my master's in curriculum instruction and became part of the Career Tech program. House Bill 1815, we taught teachers how to use technology in the classroom and instructional technology piece. So we did that early 1998 to early 2000s. I became director of that. It was actually, I was hired at Indian Capital in Muskogee. I was housed in Dewey. My boss was in Stillwater, and I had I-35 and I-40, everything except Tulsa County, where the 8th floor is located. They were a partner program in that. And I think that's the example of how professional development could be done across our state probably as well as anybody's done it. From there, went to Sperry as high school principal 3 years, then moved into the assistant superintendent and board flipped, and that it was a crazy place to be. Learned a lot about things, how you don't do things, and where things are in turmoil, how to deal with that. But basically, a community got split, a very, very well-oiled machine that was doing really well and doing good things for learners. Basically, because of the spit and match between some people that got on the board and different things got pretty difficult. I was actually, as he said, named the superintendent. Board flipped in February. Dr. Burdick's position, he had been there at prior for 40 years as superintendent. He retired with 51 years of experience. Yeah, try to fill those shoes. You don't fill those shoes, you're the next guy. Trust me, it's just the way, it's like following Dr. around, you just don't do it. But I was very blessed. I called him up and said, hey, I'm not looking, but I've been hired here just to see what's going on with your position. He said, well, I think they've already got knocked out. I think they've got their guy. Okay, great. Bill Fisher, I don't know if anybody knows him, he's a baseball coach, been many state championships, well respected in the Sperry community. Told him, I said, I'm going to stay put. We're going to be here. We're going to build this thing back and revive what Sperry was. And Dr. Burdick called me the next day and said, they kind of maybe want to at least visit with one more. So I went and talked to Dr. Burdick. Dr. Burdick says to me, he says, I'm not going to be very involved in this process. Okay, the guy's been here 40 years, and he's basically ran everything in place. Trust me, he's going to be involved. Hardest interview I ever sat through was that 1 hour with Dr. Burdick.
And I have to tell you, the side of that, I did think that they had their person. But he said, he called me. I was head of the School Boards Association, so they all called me and told me that. And I said, I think actually Burdick called me and said, I don't think this thing's going to work. Do you happen to know if there's anybody else? And I said, do I ever know there's somebody else? And I know that he's made a commitment that, this place is falling apart and he's probably somebody you want to talk to. And he said, well, can we get him over here? And all that happened within a day or two.
Yeah, and I said he had a lot to do with I think he had called one of our school board members
I
to
did.
kind of give them a heads up for us. Turns out, Lord's blessed us. I mean, we've been there, as I said, now 10 years, starting our 10th year. I came into a situation that wasn't broken. We had a good financial base. It's 2008 though, the first year of all of the cuts. So every year I've ever been a superintendent, it was cuts. And at that time, we were just like everybody else. Our district had about 2,500 students at the time. We're about 2,750 now. Small growth. We are blessed to have an industrial park now. Well, have for years. About 81 industries out there. The big game changer came when Google decided to land there. And everybody thinks now, Pryor's just rolling in it. Which we're starting to get there, but we're not there yet. But it has changed the dynamic. I'll get into that a little bit more later. But when I came in, Dr. Burdick was a financial guru. His dissertation was what the state funding formula was based upon, or a part of what he developed as his dissertation. So the guy knows his finances, and he still comes by, and I pick his brain every chance I can. And we have little competitions now, which he doesn't know it's competition. He just does it. I have him run up what he thinks funding's going to look like, and we both go through that. But I think anytime you're looking at going in, whether it's a principalship, whether you're already a superintendent, or you're going into a new position, I think you have to be very clear on what your vision is and what you think. But I think you also have to understand what that community looks like and what their expectations are. I've seen a lot of peers and a lot of folks go into situations and they're going to do this no matter what, and it doesn't fit in that community. And I don't think you could really do that. I think you have to, initially, I told everyone, I said, we're going to look at everything, but unless you hear from me differently, we're going to do what we've always done here. And as I get a feel for things, we'll see where we're at. But I said, I really think everything's in good position. I think this, you're also talking to your staff and you're saying, coming in and saying, this needs to change, this needs to change. There are things that may need to change, but you're telling them they haven't been doing a very good job. And I don't think you build trust that way, because trust is a very important factor, both in your community, but also with your staff and your faculty. So you got to get a bit of a feel and find out what your community looks like. And I think that's a very key piece that really will, hopefully, as you build trust. They put kids on our buses every day. We feed more kids than anybody in our community. We do things with our kids every day. We sent 150 plus to Washington, D.C. for 4 days. That's a lot of trust they put in you. You have to earn that trust. And it takes, just like the trust bank, you talk Covey stuff, that takes one of those screw-ups and you really destroy that. So that's a very important piece. And you have to earn that as a superintendent, because you're the face of that community and the face of that school district. So when I came in, technology, Dr. Berge told me, they had not done a lot as far as the last big building deal project they did. They did a activity center, a gymnasium, which is now named the Burdick Center. But they knew they were behind the eight ball with some facilities. So part of the discussion with the board was we're going to have to tackle facilities. But I had an idea of what that looks like, but your facility plan needs to really go look and reflect what you're trying to do as a school district. and you have to make sure that you're aligned with programs you're going to put in and all that. It's not just about going out and throwing up an elementary. It needs to be really a part of that process and thought process. So I think you have to have a clear vision that you can articulate to your staff. And I meet the first day of every year. It's about half the morning, and more than that, it's all of the morning, is we have a little where we're at, where we're going, that kind of thing with me. They need to hear from me where the district is, what our plans are, what we're trying to do, so that you get an idea of hopefully build that vision with them and communicate that vision. So the first thing I did when we came in is we looked at what are our paradigms, what are we going to operate on. Of course, we have to do the academic component for us, and we've evolved this down, but we have 3 paradigms we work on: the academic component, a character component, and then a career pathway piece. The academic component, we talk about technology and different things like that. Initially, we wanted to drive some of those kind of things. We wanted to look at technology. As we've been able to move forward, we realized at the time, it was 2008, we didn't have the money. I was writing grants everywhere I could. I was trying to find ways to do it. We were using building fund, which is about $400,000 at the time to take care of facilities that were really aging. So we were struggling, but we really had a vision of really trying to enhance what we call STEAM, because we have a strong fine arts component. Everybody hears the STEM word, and I know you've probably heard STEAM by now, but adding arts, the creativity part of that vein, trying to connect, and I'm a systems thinker, I think from elementary all the way through. I don't think you can just go do something at the high school or do something at the middle school or junior high. It has to be something that connects. It has to vertically align. It has to make sure that it patterns with what your people are doing, and it needs to make sense to them. So we've worked really hard at building that STEAM approach. We now have, and some of it's been blessings that have happened over the last couple of years, we have elementary STEM labs, which of the 3 elementaries, 2 of them have very new ones that we built as a part of our building projects. But they have a full-fledged science lab, 3D printers in there, the whole thing. And part of that was because of some relations we built with Mid-America, and they've decided to fund some of that, so we have been blessed in that. But that'll go back to our community relation piece. I'll talk to you in a second. But from that, we did a grant to Career Tech. We got a Gateway to Technology program. That was totally something that they funded. I did write a grant to Google for the computers. First time I wrote a grant for $25,000, and they kick it back and say, we think you forgot about scanners and printers and other things. You need to really probably make this about $32,000. Never happened when you write a grant. So that was I was like, okay, this is good. This is not a bad thing. But we used the Gateway to Technology. We remodeled an old building. It was a part of the wood shop. We kept wood shop on one side, and because we think that's still a good experience at our junior high. So we've got elementary program, moving into a junior high Gateway program. And then now in our high school, we've had a big gap there. We had the traditional science, we were able to offer pretty well everything. And part of our first bond issue, as I go back to what do we build, our first bond issue was we needed classroom space at the high school. But we also won this academic component, knew that STEAM was going to be important. So instead of building 4 classrooms, we built 4 brand new science labs. State of the art, punch the button on the side, it shuts down water, electric, everything. I mean, it's as high end as it gets. It's half lab, half lecture, shared rooms between, and then we've got one separate one that can be shared between classrooms. So as we were looking at academics, we were planning facilities. So I think those pieces have to really fit. But we had a gap as far as what does that look like in our STEM and our pre-engineering kind of approach. So this year, right now, we just hired her. She's a aerospace engineer. Fortunate enough, she was teaching part-time at RSU. She's got a math background, getting ready to have a doctorate soon. She wants to live in that area. Her husband lives is a game ranger, and they live in the Locust Grove area and wants to be in our area. So we hired her. We're going to teach a pre-engineering class. But she's in Atlanta right now doing 2 weeks of training with SREB, so we can have an advanced manufacturing class because that's really a program in our area that really we need. So vertically, what does that STEAM look like? One of the other pieces we recognized quickly is that we've got to prepare our students, our learners, for their future, not our past. Their future is going to have a Chromebook, a digital type of experience for every one of those students. How do we get them in that situation? How do we get them to that point? So we started small. Once again, Google landed. We were cutting teachers just like everybody else. We were in the same boat. 2008, 9, all the way through until about 4 years ago, all of a sudden started to see a little bit of a shift. But we were making cuts just like everybody. I cut 6 staff members, didn't have a high school counselor. We had 1, and we used to have 2. Through attrition, we just kept reducing until we got the benefits of some of the abnormal changes, and I'll speak to that a little bit more. But we got to the point where we recognized we've got to do something regardless. So building fund wasn't going to be enough. I wrote a grant, got lucky that they thought that planning that kind of a program, and by the way, if you got Google in your background, don't write an iPad grant, it won't fly. We were Chromebooks, and actually we did write an iPad grant, that's the only one I've ever been shot down on. But we wrote an initial one for 6th grade, and we have traditional junior high, 6th, 7th, and 8th. 7th, 8th, and 9th at our junior high. So we have 6th grade still at the elementary. So all of our 6th grades, initially our 7th grade, and then our 10th grade. So we wrote it for about 200 kids per one of those classes. So about 600 machines, pretty good sized grant. They funded most of it. And then I had building funds enough to where we were able to do it initially the 3 grades. We wanted every building to be a part of that. So we have 3 elementaries, a junior high and a high school. All the 3 6th grade buildings had 2 classrooms or 3 classrooms each, about 8 classes. They all got engaged. 7th grade worked great because all your 7th grade kids were there. 10th grade, you're in the high school. It was great, except when you go into a classroom, you got a couple seniors, you got a couple sophomores, you got a couple juniors. Well, the sophomores all had laptops, Chromebooks. The rest of them didn't. It made it very difficult for the teacher to really drive that initiative. So we learned a lot of lessons right off the bat. So we took them back the next year and said, you know what, we're going to do classroom sets with our early adopters. So in the high school, because I couldn't afford to get them there, every year, as they moved up, we just built the class behind them and kept writing grants and everything until this last year. We now have 6 through 12 all the way through, have a Chromebook in their hand. And going down, we've got 5 in every classroom from the 5th grade down. This year, we've added a full classroom set. They won't take them home, but they'll have a classroom set in their rooms for the 5th grade. Now, that's a big piece of the puzzle. You got to get the resource out there. You got to do that. But your teachers have to be equipped to change their thinking, because it doesn't do anything if you've been handing out a worksheet and now suddenly you hand out the worksheet digitally. You didn't change your paradigm for anybody. You just handed out a very expensive worksheet is what you did. So I think when you do these things and you're looking at initiatives, you've got to really consider the professional development component of it. Because now we are finally to a point, and it's taken 4 or 5 years to get to this point where we now have basically 6 through 12, and then 5th down having 5th having a classroom set, 4th down having at least 5 or 6, so they can do kind of subset type things. We realize we've got to do a better job with our staff. We've got to push the PD into this. So we've moved, and it's actually been an epiphany. Maine's been doing, in the state of Maine since 1999, 1-1 program required from 7th grade up, statewide. Small state, but required. So for basically 18 years, their classes have been totally driven by that technology. So we decided, you know what, we've got the ability to do it. We sent a cadre of teachers to Maine. We sent one from every building, included one administrator, but one from the high school, junior high, and all 3 elementaries, and one administrator from central office. What they immediately came back, and it was the epiphany of everything, it wasn't about the technology. We were going up there thinking about how do we use the technology to do this? How do we use the technology to do that? They came back and said, this has nothing to do with the technology. If you do this right, the technology doesn't matter, it goes away. What matters is how you instruct, how you teach. It's more about authentic learning. It's more about voice and choice, getting your students to engage differently. So it's now moved us to a different place. We had, as we went down this process too, you think, okay, great, I'm going to get all this technology and we're going to bring it, we're going to build this, it's going to drive our academics, and of course we enhanced our computer science program to start doing all these things. We realized suddenly all of our infrastructure wasn't going to support it. You go crazy, I got all this stuff, and then suddenly I can't connect all the Chromebooks because I've added 2,000 Chromebooks to our network. So I had to go write another grant for about $30,000 to limp us through in the 6th grade hallways so we get enough, connection points and doing all of the access points. We had to get those into a situation with enough switches and servers and everything that will handle that. So on our last bond issue, going back once again, when we talk bond issue, you got to look at what you're doing so that it drives instruction. We put about $1.3 million in technology, not for Chromebooks and all the other stuff. Some, but almost all of it was for infrastructure and backbone. So it's kind of one of these things you've got to have a systematic approach. When you're doing the 3 paradigms, the academics, the character, and the career pathway, facilities and thinking about what you're going to do to drive those facilities or those things really do make a difference. Fortunately, we've been able to, as we've evolved, we're into, let's just go back to bond issues. We passed 3 bond issues since I've been there. My first year, did not expect to have to pass a bond issue, scared to death, didn't have an idea what it was going to look like. Dr. Burdick was very traditional. You had to have that 10%. That was all he was going to bond. It wasn't going to happen. Never done a lease purchase approach. He and I had some spirited discussions. I bet. You know Dr. Burdick. He thought I was nuts. What we were doing is basically we were purchasing it like you buy a car on a lease kind of thing. We're getting today's construction dollars to do multiple projects where he would do what we could pay off in one project and then we'll move to the next. So initially we did $13.9 million. It was the biggest by far in the district. Even when they built the Burdick Center, I think it was 2 or 3 million. It was probably one of the larger ones they've done. So to say that was a bit of a reach and stretch in your first year in a community that's had the same superintendent forever. Now, I'll give this caveat. He never said a negative word about me or about anything we were doing to anybody. He was always positive, always said, you know, we got a new direction, you're gonna have to do that. He could have killed me in 10 seconds because he had a high level. He was an icon in the community, high level of trust. He said, you know, Raleigh doesn't have a clue. I would have been done in probably a year. There's just no way around it. But we had our conversations, but it was behind closed doors. Trust me, he gave me a few times. He just thought I was nuts. But we did a pass in that one. Built an early childhood center. Once again, we thought we needed to enhance what we were doing. We had half-day pre-K, didn't have a full day. We were losing kids to Osage and Shoto because they were going there because it was full day pre-K. Parents needed a full day session. They couldn't do a half day. So once again, as we were doing our thinking about what's best for our learners educationally, we were structuring what we were doing bond-wise and facility-wise to follow it and to drive that. So we built an early childhood center. That first one, we built the 4 science labs and remodeled parts of the high school that we talked about. The old science labs become new classrooms, so we gained 5 newer classrooms that we didn't have before. Junior high, we added 6 classrooms there and did a little bit of piece on the, we didn't have gymnasiums in any of our elementaries. For years, they had they just had cafeterias. I had 3 elementaries that were built in the 50s. So I had older, aging facilities. We knew we had to do some things there. So we built the first phase of a new elementary at Roosevelt, which is our middle-sized elementary, but we just built a gym down. That's all we did. 3 years later, in 2009, we passed that one. 2012 came back, and right after we passed it, we got a pretty good bump. So our millage just stayed low. I think I sold it. It was going to be about 17 or 18 mills. Came in, and we never really paid over 15 to 16 mills. We're in good shape, especially compared to what Tulsa suburban areas were. Had another chance without raising taxes. We'll go back. So we did our next bond issue. The junior high had never had a cafeteria. We'd always ship food from the high school down. Biggest complaint in the community. Did a survey. Hey, would you support that? Dr. Burdick didn't think we really needed it at the time until later when we started talking about it. He said, well, I can see that maybe. But it was never a priority because we had a way to solve it. We could do it. But it has made a huge difference. We have a new commons area with a new kitchen, and we're able to bring food in to, basically cook it right there. That was a big change in that junior high culture. With that, we built the second phase of that elementary, attached to the gym, built an area there, full technology. The old 1950s buildings have one plug-in, maybe on one wall. Smart boards, we used our foundation, but you need to get a very good relationship with them. They put our first smart boards in the district. From that was one of the things we did, a little bit of technology in our first bond issue, put up smart boards across the district. Most of the time, those projector bulbs were all great until about 2 years, 3 years later, and they're $300 a pop, and you got to replace all of them at the same time, so you put them in at the same time. So you learn pieces of that. Second bond issue, we drove some of those same things, did a few things at the stadium. This last bond issue, we came back and we're finishing the Roosevelt Elementary. It opens actually this August. Tore down the old 1950s building, a little bit of nostalgia there, but for the most part, I think our people are very blessed to see what we're able to do there. At our high school, putting a new kitchen and cafeteria on. We had actually closed in one of the financial toughest times we had. I had an elementary principal retiring at one of my elementaries. We had 4 elementaries before, Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt, Mount Rushmore. That's how they named our schools. Washington was a 1 section all the way through K through 6. That was it. So it was very small. No collaboration between teachers. You really had first, second, third. That was it. You didn't have anybody to share and work with. So when my principal retired at Jefferson, I had an opportunity. We were already sharing librarians, we were sharing counselors between the 2 smallest elementaries. we really had the room at that time, so we closed Washington. And it was a little bit, it was the same year you did the Project Schoolhouse here in Tulsa, so I had it covered. They're all talking about Tulsa, and Bartlesville went through the same thing at the same time, and it was pretty controversial in Bartlesville.
Right.
You actually had, and I give you kudos, I haven't talked to you about this in the past, you did such a good job of getting feedback. People recognized some of this needed to happen. It's just not my house, not my area, not my town, not my section, all of those. There were hard decisions that need to be made, and that's leadership. That's getting people to realize, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do it fair, we're going to try to make it as fair as we can and still accomplish the goal. But we closed that. We had two grandparents that were pretty fired up. And they even were more fired up as I was going to move the alternative school to that building. Now, this isn't probably the roughest part of town we have, and they were upset the alternative kids were coming in there. They were afraid they were going to, damage things or whatever. And I got pretty defensive about that. They're our kids. They're our learners. They hit a speed bump. We got to make sure they don't hit a fence. We got to get them where they need to be. That's the most important thing we're going to be doing. And so, after a lot of, talk to them, how to be meetings and different things like that, close that, saved me enough money that I didn't have to make cuts of staff. And that was the other piece of it. Because I could say the full principal's salary, I already had the counselor, and it actually made sense. Lady came back later. We had gotten to the point, it was 90% free and reduced. Some of those students, and we were able to take care of them very well there. But some of those students were, hey, I'm in Washington. When we moved him, the grandmother actually called me a couple years later and said, you know what? He's being challenged more because his peers, he has other classes that he can compare to. He's having to work harder, and he's moved farther than I think he would have before. And that was a big deal. She was pretty, in fact, she calls me once in a while. She goes, hey, I'm just checking in to make sure, you know who this is, don't you? And I said, yeah, I know who this is. I know who this thing is. But she's just been very complimentary because I told her, I said, just give us time, we'll see how it goes. But we just remodeled that building, and it's going to be our new administration. But more excited about than anything is it's going to drive our PD. We have 2 PD rooms totally designed strictly for professional development in our district. Before, it was always, okay, we're going to use the high school lab, and you guys will need to relocate, and we use the library. We were just all over the district, wherever we could fit it in. So we have a robotics room, we have a lab that's all going to have 30 machines in it that we can do if we have to do software computer training. And the next classroom over is strictly just like this. It'll have classes.
Go ahead.
Okay. It'll have just exactly like this as a training room. So that's on one end of the building. Our technology department is right next door to that. So that allows us, if we need an issue or anything taken care of, I got someone on it now, you're fine. So, and then with my office, we've got 4 or 5 ladies in each. I mean, in one office, I'm just going to stack them. They look honestly like this. This is their desk. They're just packed into their it was built in the 50s. This is where the offices always were. So we're going to be able to move that and actually expand what we're doing. But going back to our authentic learning, we knew and recognize now our asset, our biggest asset, if we're going to have success with anything we do, is going to be because of our teachers. Our staff is the reason we do anything well. And we're really trying hard to invest in them. So when our staff came back and said, you know what, this authentic learning, because we've always been pretty good. Our high-end kids are doing good. We got kids right now, because of some of our high-end kids have always done well. But these kids now are we got 3 at Duke. We just had 1 graduate at Stanford. We had 1 at Penn. They're doing well. We had a middle set of kids that we just weren't moving them. They still weren't engaging. We weren't where we needed to be. On that topic, about 7 years ago, a principal said, you know what, we don't have discipline issues. We've got engagement. We've got apathy issues. They didn't want to do anything. They said, hey, I got to be here, but you can't make me work. How do we fix that? So we started talking about what would that look like if we changed the paradigm and said, you know what, we're going to look at any way we can to develop how we could change that. Happened to read a book. It was on summer. My wife and I, we go on cruises a lot. My wife likes that because my phone doesn't work. This is a 24/7 job. She actually called my board president one time. We were on the beach in Florida because I was working. People were calling. I was answering emails because the phone works in the United States. You go on a cruise, you get away from that, and that's the first time she enjoys that. So do I, actually. It's better. So I read a book, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's called The Leader in Me. Basically, what happened is a lady that was from Raleigh, North Carolina, running a charter school, said, hey, Dr. Covey, have you ever tried this in school? He said, no, but you know what? If you try it, let me know how it goes. Well, it was based around leadership and used the tools of the 7 habits as the guiding influence there. It just took off. You know, the first 3 habits are about taking care of personal. You know, it's putting first things first, begin with the end in mind, and being proactive, taking care of me, being responsible for myself. The next 3 are about thinking win-win, synergizing, and about seeking first to understand before being understood. Those are about how you deal with others. And then the last one was this sharpen the saw, which is taking care of your mind, body, spirit. So immediately, the way I think in systems and all, becomes very evident to me that, okay, this solves all our issues. We don't have an additional bullying program. We discipline in the 7 habits. When we're interacting, you guys weren't thinking win-win when you guys started getting after each other. You weren't trying to understand what their viewpoint was. So we decided we're going to go immersive, pre-K through 12, all across the district. Same language, same vocabulary, same expectations. This is what we're going to be about. And so basically I started with every staff member. I gave them all the book. I said, let's start a discussion this year. Now, little did I know how expensive Covey was. We were broke at the time. They're very proud of their program, but it is very well done. One of the things we always complain about is when we do this PD, we do it one sit and get, and that's all you get, and you're supposed to figure it out the rest of the way. Covey continues that ongoing training. It is a condition of hire in our district that every staff member goes through the 7 habits training every year. There's 3, any new staff coming in, they got to have 3 days of 7 habits training in the first week of August. They'll come to visit with me about the first day, and the next 3 days they're doing Covey. Because I want them to understand what it's about. It's typically what happens when we implement a program. We do the nice big, yeah, here we go, we're all excited, we do it for a year, maybe 2, and then suddenly have 15 retired, 2 or 3 moved, new staff came in, they don't know what the, and you got to hit and miss with your program. You really don't know what's going on. You have to reinforce that, and I think it's become part of the reason we've been somewhat successful in that is because we continue to drive this. So everything we've done is about leadership. We ask our teachers, find any way you can to put students in a leadership role. Make them step up. And it was tough at first. I mean, it was become a joke. It's like, hey, you were being proactive there, and every time you use the language, everybody, the teachers even kind of snicker. Now, we've got parents, honestly, they'll call us, my kid's even talking to the kindergarten about, Mom, Dad, you're not being very proactive. You know, they're talking to them about it and how it's changed the vocabulary. It's moved into our community. We have a 3rd graders go to work program. They redid the whole entire curriculum for the county based on the 7 habits because of the successes we were seeing. Now, I think part of the reason we were successful is when the board leveled down, we were not going to go away. I told them, I said, look, as long as I'm here, this is what we're going to be about. We're going to do this. You can't tell me that us teaching the students how to basically use the tools of the 7 habits aren't going to benefit them down the road when you've got Fortune 500 companies sending their staff all the time to Covey's trainings to get their staff to be able to learn it. If our kids go all the way through and they're learning these habits and they're applying them, it's going to be an asset when they get into the work world, when they graduate. So part of it was that stubborn piece. But you all, every one of you know, teacher walks in and closes that door, the culture that happens in that classroom is strictly decided upon if they bought into your vision or not. So I always worried about that back end of people. Your early adopters, they jump on, they're excited, they see it, they got it. Middle ones, they'll kind of wait and see. But you got a subset in almost every district that are, I'm not going to do this. You know, fine, whatever, I'm going to do my own thing. They close the door, they do their own thing. And that's good and all, but I worried about that. The first things one of the Covey trainers said is, quit worrying about those folks. They're eventually either going to go away or they're going to get on board. It's one of the two. But you're going to waste a lot of time when you could be spending on those bill people. So that's what I did. We laughingly started talking about the 3 R's. Staff either relearn, relocate, or resign. That's the way we do things. If you're not going to get on board, you're not going to be happy in our district. And I'm not going to be happy with you if you're not on board. So it was a joke at first with kind of the administrators, and then it kind of came out, and then before long, pretty well the teachers, they all know it's the 3 R's, relearn, relocate, or resign. And it's not to be mean or anything else, it's just, you got to get everybody on the same page. How successful your culture is when every teacher walks in and closes their door, how well they implement what you're trying to do in that building. If you've got most 90% of your staff trying to do the things that you've asked them to do, you got a chance to move that district. And I actually, part of my dissertation study was, we had 2 elementaries that were implemented at the same time with this Leader in Me curriculum. Same resources, same approach, same timeline, everything. One moved immediately. The other one was very slow in moving. Very different, but everything was the same. It's been a really interesting study, but what it turned out to be was leadership. I will assure you the most important person in making sure something's successful is that principal in that building. Every one of those doors closes. So what those teachers do, they're going to do it because they either believe in you or believe in what you're saying. It's also the same thing, and the reason why every year at the start of the year, I spend my first day going over, here's where we're at, here's where we're going, here's why we're doing what we're doing. Because we can get them to buy in, and at least, hey, they may not like it coming down the pike, but at least they knew it was coming. You know, communication's a big, big piece of being successful in this. So I'll make sure that we're communicating with them, talking to them, making sure that they're on the same page. So that has been, and I don't know that we really imagined it would be as good as it's been. About 4 years ago, we used another, it's called 11 Principles, character.org, totally free. It's 11 principles of how character, whether a school or a district's using character in a way that would be considered successful. So we used it as kind of a template, and we laid it over what we were doing in our high school to start with. And we realized there were some areas that, you know, we were doing really well with the leader and me piece, and that the character was going well, and we were seeing good things. Discipline was dropping. You know, we had kids that were interacting differently on the playground. You know, they were looking for ways to solve their own problems because we had been giving them some tools to do that. Our students in that leader and me approach, they have a data notebook. We teach them set goals, they have to track their attendance, they have to track their grades, and then we flipped all of the parent-teacher conferences. So now when a parent-teacher conference happens, the parents come in, but they don't talk to the teacher initially. The student presents to the teacher and the parent where they're at with their learning. So we put that back to personal responsibility. Our paradigm is really personal responsibility. But we laid the 11 principles of character.org over what we were doing, and it became evident we weren't assessing ourselves very well. We weren't communicating in the community as well. There were some things we didn't do very well. So we were a runner-up school of character that year. And that really fired up our sponsor and our kids as much as anything. So they went back and said, okay, hey, we can do better. They took that and ran with it, and we became a state and actually a national school of character that first year. Our students got so excited about that, we sent them to the national in Atlanta that year, and wanted them to receive it to be in the National School of Character. While they were there, they attended the National Museum of Civil Rights. Had a profound effect on them. Came back and they started a conversation with Clifton Talbert, 8 Habits of the Heart. Said, hey, we want to do, and I always give a lot of, we hosted a state student council. Sky Took and us were one of the few 5As that have done it. 2,000 kids over 3 days. Our kids ran the whole show. How do you put them in leadership roles? You let them go into leadership roles. You put them in the position where they have to lead. So when Clifton Talbert, they started this conversation, they said, well, if we had a book read and we started doing something in our community, would you come speak to us? Student-led, sure enough. We ended up doing, I read a chapter, the mayor read a chapter, a couple of pastors, different people, and we did a community book read of the 8th Habit of the Heart. He came and spoke, and the junior high up, had Thunderbird there, filled our auditorium, filled the Verdict Center, really cool. Well, while they were there, they realized that, okay, they can't even imagine overcoming what the civil rights movement did and how the challenges of overcoming that. They said, hey, as high school students right now, we have a lot of things we have to overcome. So we want to do a museum. Okay, didn't have any clue what this was going to look like. Our city hall had just moved, and they had an old city hall with their region, the Arts and Humanities group. So they secured it themselves. For 3 days, we're going to set up a museum. So while Clifton Talbert was speaking in that week, they hosted, and they hosted their own museum. They created things about overcoming drug addiction, parents in prison, self-image. One of the coolest things was had an iPad there, and they would read all these things about negative about themselves. And it says, step to your right. And there was a mirror there, and they look at yourself, and it would say, then step back. You step back, and here's all these positive affirmations about yourself and changing that paradigm. It was really pretty powerful. They got into things, I swear I thought I was going to get phone calls, and I really thought I was going to get sued out of the deal. Stuff on pornography, on STDs, on stuff that really a big-time challenge, teen pregnancies, all of those things. They had rooms all through there built around that. We hosted it for 3 days, didn't let elementary kids in. Clifton Talbert went through there. He calls me back. He said, it's the most coolest thing I've ever seen. I mean, he started a dialogue, he and I. He spoke to the Supreme Court. He spoke, he's United Nations. This guy is very, very well respected. He happens to live in Tulsa. Very, very, just a unique, genuine gentleman. All student-led. They screwed up. They failed some things and figured it out. But that's how they learn. Growth mindsets. How do you get, stub your toe, keep going. Well, the high school became a National State School of Character, and the next year, 2 of our elementaries applied for that. Both of them met. We were surprised, honestly, because it's pretty difficult. The state was somewhat easier, but the National School of Character. So we sent 3 schools last year to the Nationals. This year, our junior high qualified, and they're a state National School of Character. Roosevelt went a different route. They have a lighthouse status in the Covey organization, and they kind of did an assessment. And the whole time we were doing this wasn't about becoming a school of character or anything else. It was about assessing ourselves to see if we can do better. But in that journey, rewards happened that actually got the staff and the kids more excited. So I don't think you go out trying to attain something like that. I think you look at it as, how do I get better? How do we get better? How do we get better? And if things happen like that, then you use that momentum. The Roosevelt became the first one, the Covey organization in Oklahoma, and 110th in the world. They haven't touched the character.org because they feel more comfortable than the other approach. I don't care. I just want to put in character as a priority. About 4 years ago, we recognized we've got 81 industries out there, but we've got a lot of kids that are not connected. So David Sturge, who was appointed by the governor, it's a lifetime appointment. He's the 3rd person in the history of the program of America to be the administrator there. He had come from running and building the Cherokee Nation business side of things. He basically built the Hard Rock. That was his role before. So, change of chiefs, he left, governor appoints him. His thing is marketing and getting people in the room. He got everybody in the room from the Chamber of Commerce, the 5 county schools, RSU, OSUIT, Career Tech, and all the industries. He said, look, workforce place, all these different groups, we all have resources. We've got everything in the whole world right here. We've got 4-lane highways, we've got an airport, we've got, all kinds of opportunity. We don't have a workforce. He said, we can't attract people because we don't have a workforce. He said, you've got opportunity because you've got all these young learners coming out of our schools. They aren't making a connection of what's out here. We've got to change that. So he put everybody in the room and said, look, there's not here, you're not going to ask for money or anything else. We're going to talk about what we have that we can work together on. And it turned out everybody had all these resources that I didn't know you all did that. Well, I didn't know you had that. Vice versa, we started all these conversations. Higher ed, local K-12s, we started talking about how ways we can do different things. And it was amazing what happened. So the collaboration happened right away. But the other thing David said is when you walk in here, you leave your agenda at the door. Because if you're coming in here with your own agenda and you're not going to budge, you might as well not even join us. And it really did change kind of the working relationship with us and the business folks. Schools have to be willing recipients in this, because what's happened is the business and industry over here complaining about they don't have a workforce, but they haven't made any effort to come our direction. And over here, we're trying to survive in the finances and accreditation, all the things we're doing, and get beat up. We hadn't had conversations. What they started telling me was, look, I gotta have somebody, you just get me somebody in the door that can pass a drug test, show up on time, be off their phone every 5 minutes, and do those kind of basic things. I can make them employed. Well, for us, that was character. And that's basically, we're trying to build in our character piece a crucible of character so that they learn their core values, so when they come to decision points, they make good decisions. We were putting them through that whole thing. We can get kids to do that. So they liked that part, and it was Covey, which business and industry understood. So that started some good positive conversations. I had the epiphany, though, that we had way too many kids, and we still do, that are just doing school. They got the social piece figured out, they got the academic piece figured out. They're not making the connection of what they do now matters to what they're going to do down the road. That's my fault. That's our fault. We've got, and Superintendent Hoffmeister says it all the time, you can't see it, you can't be it. We have to start a conversation with our people about making sure that we're giving every opportunity to make them aware of what's out there. We've got to do a better job with the career awareness piece. So we already had a 3rd graders program in which we have all the Mason County schools going together. Works really well, pretty easy to do. Chamber of Commerce started it. We didn't even start it, but it's something you can work pretty easily. They just get business partners. John Deere dealer, RCB Bank, Fire Station, Mid-America did it. All these different groups come in, and they basically send a representative to the classroom. We have a meeting beforehand, everything, kind of coordinate everything. They talk about their business. At John Deere dealer, we do this, and it's agriculture, and here's this. Kids then go back and do research on that, whatever they're doing. Then the kids do a field trip to that place in 3rd grade. And I can't tell you, they've been doing it since '99, how many kids have come back and said, I remember going back in 3rd grade to go to work, we did this. At the bank, they teach you how to write a check, they get to actually cash the check and get $1. So it's pretty cool, you know. But that's just one piece of the awareness. Well, sixth graders, if you haven't seen BizTown, if you're in this community, you need to look at JA BizTown. It's a great curriculum. Sixth grade teachers thought, you know, I got enough on my plate, I got a test, they didn't want to do it. A couple of them didn't. As we talked about it, non-negotiable, 3 R's, right? Relearn, relocate, resign. They jumped on board, went through it, and of course now they're all just bought in 100%. Kids have to make application, they have to be interviewed for the job. We have all these business guys coming in, which once again builds your business and your community trust and gets them in your classrooms. But they're interviewing sixth graders for these different jobs that they're going to do. And then the students all go and actually run the city for a day. And they actually have a city built in BizTown. It's a great, great program. Sixth grade. Ninth grade, I took a class that was I can't remember, it was a semester civics class or a semester geography, I think, world geography, I think is what it was. Social sciences. We changed it. We can make the codes work without having to jump through a ton of hoops to where it's a career awareness class. So, teacher that we really kind of thought would jump in. At the ninth grade level, we made every student in their ninth graders go through, have to take a career awareness. They have to do a interest inventory, fill out a college application, fill out a work comp application, start doing, we did field trips and different things like that. Had speakers come in. Well, this year, we're actually moving it down to seventh grade because we think we've got to start earlier. We also realized in all three of these go together, you know, that academic component earlier, we have building the STEAM approach, and we're actually in computer science, which I did mention a while ago. We're starting in elementary with CS First, which is free. It's Google provides everything, totally free, but they learn how to code in fashion or in sports and in different things. The kids engage in gaming and building apps. And in the junior high, we have Global Laureate, which actually enhanced that to educational games they build. We had a girl, to try to get girls and minorities into coding, we had a girl actually win a national award this year just because her design piece was really cool, which got a lot of girls excited. RSU is now partnering with us where we're going to be able to teach a certificate if they take the pathway. Before they graduate, they can have a certificate that with 2 classes have a cybersecurity certificate in technology, which police and fire, especially the police departments, really like. But all three of these kind of tie together. But as we were doing the career awareness piece, we recognize that we've got to reach this down farther. So this year, we're going to do every grade level will have some kind of activity in which they do a career awareness, pre-K all the way up. It may be one a semester pre-K, but as they get to junior high, it's every 9 weeks. We have a deal called Tiger Time. It's 25 minutes built into our high school schedule, something that we can use for different homerooms or whatever. Wednesdays are working Wednesdays. We do a spotlight of a career. Got to get them to see it. Got to get them going. Met today Secretary Shirley. That's actually where I just came from a meeting. She came over and we're talking about how we do an internship program. We've got 91 students that are juniors last year, going to be seniors, that have indicated, we gave them their top 3 choices on where they would like to work, what kind of field. And so what we're trying to do is set up a program, and we're using BizTown as a liability insurance approach there. And our kids will hopefully go out in the fall, and we'll partner them up with businesses. Okay, they may want to work in business, maybe in an insurance company, or maybe out one of the industrial parks working in the business office, where we've got a lot of hands-on kids, kinesthetic learners. We've got people that we can engage in a different way. So we're trying to create this, and we haven't got it all figured out, I promise you. But Hilldale's done this. Dr. Cootie's done a very good job with this. We're mirroring a lot of what she's already done. We're trying to learn from everybody else. That's what I said. Trust me, we'll steal anything if it works and fits within what we're trying to do. End of the day, we're wanting to give our kids and we don't call them students anymore. We changed that last year. They're learners in our district. Everyone is a learner, including our staff. And as I said earlier, our staff is our biggest asset. We are going to pour into them. We're going to start this summer. In fact, this next week. We did 1 in June. We're doing 2. We're going to go simultaneous next week. It's a boot camp. 2 days with Solution Tree, learning how to do an actual PLC. 2 days and looking at the Oklahoma standards, using ALCA, unwrapping standards, what that looks like, and how do you do that in a project-based approach. Authentic learning, giving students voice and choice. They get to decide. You're going to do an assignment anyway. Give them some choice and some voice in what that looks like. Set up a rubric and let them decide where they want to take it. We do elementary robotics that way. We do a lot of project-based things in a lot of classes. A lot of your athletics is done as project-based learning. Your results on Friday night, but you're approaching it the same way. How do you get that right? Well, we're trying to do boot camps, but I'm paying them $1,000 to spend the week with us. So I got 70 people, it's costing me 70 grand plus the benefits of that. That's an investment in my staff. Going forward, we're going to do digital badging. If we want them all technically where they need to be, and we're using it instructionally, we're going to have probably 5 classes. One class will be a basic, you got to get everybody at least the same level. How to use your Gmail, how to use your calendar, how to use Google Drive, how to use Google Docs, all of that in the first class. Second class, maybe Google Drive and then Google Classroom, and how do you assess and build rubrics and share and grade online and all those kind of things. Use Turnitin and those kind of things. One will be secondary, one will be elementary, maybe how to use accelerator reader and spark montage and all the tools we have in the district effectively. And the last 2 are going to be instructional technology. How do you change the paradigm? How do you move them up that ladder to where they're not just substituting what they were doing? How do you make them augment and then move it on up that scale so where you're getting the staff that are really changing how they're teaching? So we're going to do a 5-class kind of approach, and then at the end of that, when they complete all 5, and it could be over a 2-year period, once they complete all 5, I'll probably pay them another stipend for $1,000. It's a way for me to pay staff and give them a chance to make a little extra money, but we benefit as well, and our learners really benefit. So that's kind of where we're at. So we got 3 paradigms we work off of: the academic component, the character, personal responsibility component, the career pathways component. But all 3 of those intermix. You're trying to build a career pathway piece. You better have character in it. You better have it at a place where they have autonomy, they have mastery, they understand what they're doing, and they can academically go out and represent and do well. All of those tie together. And then as we do the facility component of that, all of our planning, and we met with our architect last Monday night, we're looking at another pretty big bond issue into the fall or next spring. We're going to build potentially a new, I can't say this yet, we're looking at some options, but one of the things we're going to do is we're going to take an existing building and we're going to blow it out and make it a career pathway center. I'm going to have half of it's going to be a STEM lab or pre-engineering, that kind of thing. The other half's probably going to be health and all the things that go with that pathway, because we're short of nurses and everything else. Our planning is based around what we're doing for our learners. At the end of the day, they've got to go out and be successful citizens, husbands, wives, employees. I'm not a test score guy. I look at the ACT, and that's about the only one I get too twisted about. That's what I don't care. They've changed cut scores on so many times, I can't tell you whether I can compare one year to the next. It's an invalid, the A through F is an invalid all the way across. In our district, if I've got kids that are learning and leading, and they're stepping out, and they have mastery, and they can be authentic, and they have autonomy, then I'm going to have a chance for them to be successful. And it's not about a test score. Now, just be quiet. My wife says that all the time. Questions, comments, thoughts, anything? Yes, sir.
I got a question on when you talk about the gateway program at the elementary level. When you get to the junior high or the high school level, are you separating when they go into the pathways by data of if they're strong in math or?
We've actually left it open to them because a lot of times it's not. It's desire. If a student really kind of likes that and wants to, they may not have tested well in that area, but if they want to do it, that's where it goes back to that authentic choice if they want to do it. So right now our gateway, which is basically they design things on the computer and they go build a robot with it, or it's basically you design an elevator that goes up to the 3rd floor, back down to the 1st, and then stops on the 2nd, opens. Those kind of things are what they're designing. That's an elective science, and I've been pushing like crazy at State Farm, beating them dead. Let me make that a science, instead of an elective, let me make it part of their science credit. Give them some credit for that. I still fight that, but yeah, we've just made it an elective, just like they go to athletics or band or FCCLA or one of those, facts, I guess is a better word. But it's just been an elective for us. But it always comes down to people in everything we're doing. Talking about high school principal or any of the principals, it comes down to people driving things. I want thoroughbreds. I don't want Eeyore. I got to push all the time. I want somebody who's going to take it and run with it. And there's people that have gotten crossways with a lot of people. I embrace those. They're the kind of coming in and kicking the door down. I tell every new teacher we hire, I said, I do not expect you to be a wallflower. I hired you to come in here and kick the door down and do everything you can to change everything you can that's better for our learners. You need to get in and engage. So in some of this, GRED, hired him away last year at the very start of school. And luckily, I'd hired another young man that was very science, he was already going to be hired as a science teacher, but just going to teach the gen science. He jumped over there. He goes recruits. He goes after those kids like the football coach or anybody else.
Yeah.
Hey, you gotta come do this. And of course, when our first bunch that I started doing robotics and started doing it, it was amazing how excited the kids got to be. And we got grants and people were doing it. The other part of building relationships, especially with your community businesses and stuff, we've been doing this and talking about it. I didn't even talk to DuPont. They're out in the park. Didn't know anything about it. They're called Soleil. They do some organic, different things, food and different things like that. But it's DuPont, big company. They called me up and says, hey, we got a grant. You mind if we write a grant for you? Sure. It's called Sea Perch. Okay. Talk to me some more. So lady engineer writes the grant. It turns out it's an underwater robotics program. We implemented it in one of our 6th grade classes. It's the coolest thing you've ever seen. We go to the rec center after a semester, and their engineers came in and helped guide it. Of course, they love it. That's right down their wheelhouse. They're going to go play. Business embraced it because they're driving STEM. Came in, and so we had, I think it was 2 full days at the rec center at the pool, and these kids are learning like crazy. Driving, they have to go through an obstacle course and all that. Amazing experience. And they had 4 or 5 engineers that day out there with them. And they're actually engaging with our kids, so our kids are learning what that looks like. The other piece I think you have to look at, I gave a book, and I've done it a couple times. Last year, growth mindset. If you haven't done anything with Dr. Dweck's stuff, growth mindset is a big piece. And I challenged our staff. I got on their toes a little bit. I gave every one of them her book, Growth Mindset. I said, you need to look at this. It's 2 pieces. We've got kids in our community. We have got a very blue-collar community. We don't have, we've got our parts of town that are pretty wealthy. We've got a lot of challenged situations. We've got a lot of meth problems. We've got meth and drugs and our prescription drugs. Those are issues in our community. We had 19 out of, we had 9 out of 19, that was the number. In a 2nd grade class, 3 years ago, parents were incarcerated during that year. And I don't know what your dynamics are in your community, but incarcerated parents are a big issue. We've got a lot of grandparents raising our kids. We've got a lot of challenging situations in our community. And trying to get that shifted and changed is a big challenge. A lot of these kids come from a situation, we call it the 17-hour flu. We've got them while we've got them. We're going to inoculate them while we can because they got to go home sometime for 17 hours, and it's a tough situation. We call that, my principal came up and said, yeah, they go home, they got the 17-hour flu. We're doing an after-school program to make it a 15-hour flu this year, so we're going to extend our day. But we've got kids that they don't see that there's anything but what they are looking at every day. It's a very fixed mindset. They don't think there's another way out. And I told our staff, I said, you've got to open up their doors, their eyes. You've got to make them believe that they can be more than that. And I said, here's the other thing. You have to have a growth mindset with them as well. Because if you walk in and you immediately think, man, you're a little dirty, or you're not this, or you're not that, you just reinforce what they already believe. And you solidified it for them. Because there's somebody, you are somebody they really look up to. So how you treat them and how you perceive them and how you interact with them is going to be as important. Your brightest kids typically have fixed mindsets. They've been told they're smart. They don't want to challenge in anything because that may show that they're not smart anymore. Read. If you get a chance, that's worth your read. Trust me.
Could you speak to the financial change that you had with the ad valorem?
Yeah. We started out, this is a fun discussion. We started out at 88 million when I walked in the door. That was our valuation of our district. And that was with 80 industries. Okay, we have 81 now. It's good to come in, I guess. We lost Gatorade, we lost Labanol, we lost Georgia Pacific, we lost 4 or 5 industries right off the first couple of years. I mean, it was a bad deal. And I thought we'd actually lose a little valuation. Google had planned it and just started. We went from 88 to 112 million. Next year we went to 113 million. Next year we went to 121 million, and then we went to 142 million. Then Google took off. We grew 65 million the next year, which that's a tall circle from a city kind of growth, maybe less than more, not as much, but I mean, it's only an urban area that you grow like that. The next year was 115 million, then 105 million, and I just got our June one, we grew another 102 million. We're currently at 533 million in our valuation. That's equivalent to a WASA for prior. We got 2,700 kids. I mean, it's amazing. Honestly, I pinch myself. Now, here's the other side of that coin. About 4 or 5 years ago when all this started coming in, all of a sudden I looked in January and I'm down $1.9 million in my collections. Then I'm down $2.1 million the next year in collections. Well, then it was 5.6. Last year it was 9.5. This year we just finished 16.5 million. Google doesn't pay their ad valorem taxes for the first 5 years because they've got a manufacturer's exemption for the data warehouse. So I have to wait on the state to reimburse me the amount of ad valorem that they would pay. So in our situation, it's like paying your bills all year long and you get a check at Christmas. We got this year's check for, and it didn't all come in, only 88% came in, about 14.6 million. Building fund, general fund, sinking fund came in June 20th. End of my fiscal year is July 3rd, or June 30th. June 30th. We were upside down this year for the first time. We've had non-payables for $3 million from the end of May flow through. You're talking about being puckered, being nervous. Yeah, it's stress for the board, for everybody. Now, as long as they pay me, we look great on paper, and it's a great thing. But it's nerve-wracking. Next year, because we grew another 102, we'll be over $20 million the state will pay us back for our reimbursement. We've grown our carryover, and we're not going to touch this year's growth. We're going to leave it a year and try to help us gain a little bit of cushion, which at the same time, you've got to try to take care of your teachers. We hired staff. We spent 16.1 3 years ago was my total general fund expenses. The year next, I spent 17.3. We grew 2 million, or about $1 million rather, $1.2 million. But my carryover from 2.7 to 4.3. Last year, we went from 17.3, we spent 19.3. We increased $2 million in expenses, but I grew my carryover again by about it. It'll actually be 4.8, but I didn't get $1.3 million. $1.3 million my general fund didn't come in because the state, the budget deal didn't come into until late. We still haven't got the rest of our money yet, so it'll go into next year's deal. But what we've tried to do is enhance where we think the target points are that's going to affect our learners the best. We've added staff, speech pathologists, special ed, aides, different places like that. Checking out Chromebooks became the media center. They became the library. Instead of the librarians, they became the Chromebook queens. They were checking out books all day and messing with that. So we hired an aide this coming year. They're going to just basically manage the IT piece and help with that. Paying an aide, it's a leverage thing. For the 2 aides I got in high school, junior high, but I get my librarians back. So we've done things like that. We also sent all of our 8th graders, as I said, for the first time in May, we sent them to DC, 151 kids, about 19 adults. Most life-changing things. Some of 90% of them have never been on an airplane. 95% of them have never been to DC. It was amazing watching them on Facebook Live and doing the things they did. We sent an SRO, we sent a nurse, we sent a special ed director with me. I was nervous the whole time, but it was a great experience for our learners. We decided if we're going to have this input and do this additional monies, how are we going to move the dial for our learners? It's not just about paying our staff more. We did give them a $2,000 stipend. Every certified staff got $2,000 in November. We already pay 7% of we pay all full retirement. Full retirement is 7% of your pay check. So we don't have, knock on wood, we haven't had as much trouble hiring. And I'm going to have 3 on probably an emergency just because it's hard to find people. But when we take somebody from another district, they walk in our doors, they get a 7% raise because we're going to pick up the retirement for them on top of what we already pay. We just gave certified staff $1,000 across the board, every certified staff, because they're typically underpaid, undervalued. Those people, most of the time running a district, they do a lot of the pieces of the puzzle to let us do what we need to do with our learners, and sometimes it's directly with those learners. So it's a great situation, and we're figuring it out. But at the same time, it is as nerve-wracking as all get out. I'm having, in one fell swoop in the last 2 days of the session, they tried to move motor vehicle, if it's a line item, a chargeable, they were going to move that into the formula, just so the legislators could say, we gave more money to education. No new dollars, it's moving the shell game. So us and Cushing and Stroud and the other 30-some schools that are off the formula, that disappears. And what I try to tell everybody, I wrote every legislator, I wrote the governor, Jay Fielker, I scalded him pretty good. I kind of got to know him, but I was just living because what's going to happen is Claremore was going to get $30,000, Salina was going to get $12,000. People are going to get some winners and losers, but I promise you in 2 years, it'll disappear. Just like the textbook money, the 33 million that went into the formula, okay, it'll be great. The textbook hasn't been back and it'll never come back. Just like the lottery money. If you leave it in a big pot for legislators, they'll screw it up. They've proven that. So we almost lost $1 million in the swipe of a pen. Luckily, Leslie Osborne wrote me back, and Representative Osborne said, hey, my name's attached to it. And I wrote her a long email. I know this is your bill and all this, please consider what the ramifications are. She was hot. She's a representative in the Senate or the House Appropriations. She's the chair of that. They attached her name because she was the chair, but she didn't even know about it until after it already came out. And she said, I won't see this bill. It won't be heard in my committee. And she killed it, luckily. But it's coming back because the legislators want to, the deal about apportionment versus appropriation, I guess, is things that are line item, they don't like that because they don't have control of it. That's why they put them in the line item, so they wouldn't have control of it. And honestly, and I told them, I'll tell you, I'm a Republican. I can vote in Oklahoma. As a Republican, I want to see the accountability you all talk about every day. So let's see that line item where I know it's there and I know what's going to happen with it. And it's a chargeable, guys. It's going against the state aid. It's going to help the state. Anyway, Senator Stanislavski and I had a number of conversations about the ad valorem reimbursement. Prior was mentioned in the ad valorem piece, and it's been mentioned in big time. We've had Wagner and I both have been spotlighted in the New York Times this last year. We've gotten a lot of attention, and some of it, most of it's been positive, but it also puts a big bullseye in the conversations, in the discussion about motor vehicle. Who cares if First Prior? They got plenty of money. They got Google. Well, that's $1 million. I don't care who you are. $1 million is a lot of deals. It's going to affect a lot of our learners. It's going to change our path. And as I convinced Stanislavski, by us being off the formula, we used to get $8 million when I walked in the door. I don't get that money. I got $60,000 because of the transportation line. I'm basically paying the ad valorem, is paying the state aid goes to all the county schools. That $8 million is distributed across the state or across the county. I'm not getting it, somebody else is. And he said, well, yeah, but you're getting reimbursement. I said, yeah, but for 5 years, eventually that'll go away. I said, in that 5 years, you drew Google in. And guess what that does to the state ad valorem? It's a benefit. I said, I don't have a problem with one of these incentives if it works. It'll sunset. What happened was, the problem we got is that WIN was allowed to be in when WIN didn't qualify. And WIN got 3 or 4 different incentives, and one of them being the manufacturer's exemption. So what was about a $9 million price tag to reimburse it became 13 million, 20 million, 70 million, 100. This year was 73 million just to pay the schools back. County schools, county government, and career techs get reimbursed. There's a 1% sales tax fund that was created back in the late 80s when the ad valorem reimbursement fund was created. It's a constitutional state question. It's in the Constitution. So that's one reason I feel a little better about it, being able to be protected. But there's a fund of 1% of all sales of income tax that goes into that fund. It's never generated enough money lately because they cut income tax over and over and over. So the fund's been depleted, just like 1017 and everything else.
Okay, yeah. I found myself sitting here thinking, did you hear that? Did you get that? Did you hear what he said? And I hope you did, because he talked about everything. He talked about everything. He talked about how he utilizes technology. He talked about his emphasis on the teachers. That was a thread throughout there. I mean, I don't need to repeat it. You surely picked it up. He talked about strategic planning. He didn't do anything without strategic planning. It all fits into a strategic plan. He talked a lot about technology. He talked about finance. Probably weren't a lot of us that followed that really well, but I found it extremely interesting. I've been through some of that. So you've been through some of that whenever I was a little guy, but oh my gosh, that was dazzlingly good. It really was. So let's thank our speaker for coming in on very short notice. We have another speaker coming in at 6:30.